Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new League of Legends video. So like I said, there's gonna be a lot more changes coming up for the preseason and this is gonna be another one of them. So as expected, Riot is reworking and changing around a lot of the existing items while also adding quite a bit of new ones. So naturally, the purpose of this video will be to go through each of the changes and also the new items. We'll start things off by looking at the changes they did to the items that we already know and love while looking at the differences, and following that we'll take a look at the completely new items. Also keep in mind I will not be going through every single item change because some of them are just simply too minor, but I will have a link down below where you can see every single change for yourself, so I do recommend checking that out if you care about those smaller changes. But let's get right into things. So let's start everything off with the Last Whisper. So not only does it have a new icon, which actually looks much better, but it is now 1000 gold cheaper, offers 15 less AD, but the armor penetration is completely different. Instead of ignoring 35% of the target's total armor, it now only ignores 30% of just their bonus armor, which is the armor gained from things like items. Following this, we have the Lucidity boots. So the cooldown on these boots has been reduced by 5%, but to make up for that, there's a new passive on these boots that now reduces summoner spell cooldowns by 10%, which in my opinion is a very worthy trade-off. Next, we have one of my personal favorite items, Youmuu's. So the cost got increased by 500 gold, but to compensate, it got an increase in 35 AD. Though I did unfortunately lose the 10% crit chance. This is a great change because Youmuu's is an early to mid game item, and at that stage of the game, flat AD is much more valuable and reliable than crit chance. Then we have Black Cleaver, which will now cost you 500 more gold. You also lose 100 HP, but at least you get 15 bonus AD. And the passive seems to be untouched. This one is a bit more questionable as to whether or not the change is better or worse for the item. In my opinion, it's about the same worth. Then we have Essence Reaver, which is an item I think ADC mains will be happy about. So first, it will unfortunately cost you 300 gold extra, and you will also lose 15 AD. However, you now get a massive 20% critical strike chance. You still keep that 10% cooldown reduction, but the fantastic thing is the fact that you can now get 20% extra cooldown reduction up to 30%, which scales off of your critical strike chance that you get from other items, or even runes. And you still have the mana regeneration passive that now works off of your crit strikes. So definitely something like a third or fourth item, but it will be very strong. Next, we have the Hextech Gunblade that I'm really happy Riot is finally putting some attention to. So much of this item seems to be untouched, including the cost, but the biggest change is now the new passive that heals you for 15% of the damage dealt while also doing 33% for AoE type damage. But you also want to note that the passive that reduces the active effects cooldown of this item has been apparently removed, which is the part that I don't really like. Here's an item change for all of you Tarzans. So the cost is actually 50 gold less, which is very big, but it now does 8% lifesteal versus monsters. You now get 15 bonus experience instead of gold on killing large monsters, and now you just simply deal a flat 20 bonus damage on hit versus monsters as well. Also, some people are speculating that Hunter's Machete might get replaced by another jungle item that we'll cover later on in the video because it is a completely new item. Following this, we have the Maw of Malmortius. It'll now cost you a whopping 50 extra gold. It will give you 15 less AD, but to compensate, not only do you get 10 bonus magic resistance, but you also get 10 armor penetration. The shield that you gain from this item seems to be the same, but the other passive has been changed. Instead of getting bonus damage based on your missing HP, whenever the first passive triggers that gives you the shield, you'll gain 25% attack speed, 10% spell vamp, and lifesteal until you're out of combat, which I think is definitely a better change. But speaking of AD/MR type items, our favorite Scimitar, while costing you the same amount of gold, will now give you 5 less attack damage. The same MR, but now 10% lifesteal, which is 100% a worthy trade-off. Here's a change that I'm personally very excited for. So not only does Phantom Dancer now get a really cool looking icon, but it'll also cost you 100 gold less. Unfortunately, you lose 10% attack speed, the move speed completely, and also 5% crit chance. But it has two completely new passives. You'll get 12% move speed and be able to move through units if you're within an enemy champion within 500 units that you have vision of. And the second passive being the really cool one, the last champion hit deals 12% less damage to you. Think of this on a split pushing or dueling type champion like Zed or Fiora, that is pretty strong. Runaan's Hurricane for the same amount of gold will give you significantly less attack speed, but as a trade-off you get 30% crit chance, which is a huge amount, and 5% move speed. You now deal 15 bonus physical damage per auto attack, compared to the previous 10. But the two separate bolts that you fire from this item will only do 25% of your attack damage, but now they can also critically strike. The old Hurricane cannot critically strike with the two bolts that it fires, so keep that in mind. The major differences on Static Shiv are the fact that you lose 5% attack speed, gain 10% crit chance, and also lose 1% move speed, while still costing you 2500 gold. The passive seems to be similar, but it can now hit 5 targets. But it now has a damage range from 50 to 150, so I'm assuming based on how much you've charged it, or in this case, energized it. This might mean that Yasuo with Static Shiv into IE with a bit of crit chance in his runes might make his return. And the final old reworked item that we'll talk about is Triforce. Now being 97 gold more expensive, you lose 5 attack damage, and you completely lose the 30 ability power. You also lose 15% attack speed, however you gain 10% increased crit chance, 50 more mana, and a completely new feature offering you 10% cooldown reduction in Triforce, because apparently Sheen will no longer grant AP but will now grant CDR. This is definitely a questionable change that I'm not entirely sure if it's good or bad. But that is the rework that Riot has done for the items that we've been playing with for so long. But let's move on to the more interesting part, taking a look at all of the completely new items. So the first item we have is Caulfield's Warhammer, which is half of Brutalizer, since Brutalizer apparently is being removed and being split into 2 items, with this one being the first half. So this one has the 25 AD and 10% CDR from Brutalizer. And the second half of it is going to be Serrated Dirt, giving you 20 attack damage, 10 flat armor penetration, and a bit of bonus damage to your next auto attack or single target spell after killing a unit. This seems like a very strong laning phase item, killing a minion and then harassing your opponent. Here's one of the new starting items called Cull. Only 5 attack damage and 3 life on hit, but the passive is quite big. Killing a minion will give you an additional bonus gold, and at 100 minions you will get 300 bonus gold. So a very greedy item. Following that we have an item called Death's Dance. For 3400 gold you get 65 AD, 10% CDR, what is essentially 12% lifesteal, and 20% of damage taken is dealt as a bleed effect over 5 seconds instead, so pretty much countering burst damage. The next new item is called Eye of the Equinox. For 2200 gold you get 500 HP and 100 base HP regeneration. This seems like it will be a support type item, which might be an upgrade from the current Targons, as it has a similar executing effect. However, the cool thing now is the fact that this item also has a new unique active where you can place wards, because if you didn't know, the green ward is actually removed from the game. Then we have the upgraded version of Nomad's Medallion, also having a very similar passive, and like the previous item having the ability to place a stealth ward. And then Frostfang's equivalent of the new upgraded support item that will also give you the option to place a stealth ward. Keep in mind guys that the active effect on all 3 of these items, so Targon's getting the shield, Frostfang with the slow, and Talisman of Ascension giving you the move speed, have been removed in place of the new stealth ward feature. And here's what seems to be a potential new trinket, giving you 650% extra cast range, infinite duration of your wards, and does not count towards the ward limit, 66% reduced cooldown. I mean, this sounds quite overpowered, so this is something you'll have to see in use to really understand how strong or maybe how weak it really is. The next one is going to be another very cheap item, only 750 gold, but giving you 15% attack speed and having the same Static Shiv effect, just a weaker version. So quite obviously this will probably build into Static Shiv. Here's that jungle item that I was saying may replace Hunter's Machete. For only 300 gold you get a massive mana regeneration only while you're in the jungle, and a sustained passive with bonus experience. Then we have Jarm's Fist that'll cost you 1040 gold. 15 attack damage, 150 health, and a cool passive where you kill a unit to get 5 maximum health, stacking up to 30 times. It's almost like Scion in an item. Here's a cool new ADC type item. For 2500 gold you get 40 attack damage, a really cool passive called Giant Slayer that gives you 15% bonus damage against enemy champions with greater maximum health than you, and the Last Whisper type passive giving you 40% bonus armor penetration. Don't forget guys, that says bonus armor penetration, not total armor penetration. So here's an item I'm sure every single ADC has been absolutely begging for. Then what looks to be another version of the previous item for 2500 gold and 40 AD. It also has the 40% bonus armor penetration passive, but this one allows AD type champions to finally inflict grievous wounds once again, something that's been a big issue for AD champions while AP champions have Morellonomicon. Here's a really cool ADC item once again for 2500 gold. 30% attack speed, 30% crit chance, and 8% move speed while also having that energized passive effect that Static Shiv has. Except this one, instead of giving you the lightning effect, will give you 35% bonus range and also deal bonus magic damage on your hits. Pretty OP if you ask me. Another new item that is called Staff of Flowing Water will give you 40 AP, 25 MR, and 50 base mana regeneration for only 1735. You gain more mana regeneration based on missing mana, and a cool effect that only works while you're in the river, giving you bonus move speed and mana regeneration. So it's like a version of Athene's that helps you roam better to top and bottom for mid lane. Here's a relatively cheap item for only 400 gold, giving you 15 AP, 100 base mana regeneration, and 100 bonus mana. You get 2 bonus AP per glory, and you gain 3 glory for every champion kill or 1 glory for an assist, up to 10 total, but losing 6 on death. So it seems like Magi Soul Stealer had a baby. Here is what I assume will be replacing the current flask, because Riot does want to remove mana potions. So this now instead will give you 100 health over 10 seconds while being able to refill at the shop for only 150 gold. And it seems like you might be able to upgrade that potion into something even better, the first of which being the Corrupting Potion. So this one seems to give you mana with HP as well, which is kind of weird considering Riot did say they're removing mana potions. But the cool thing is, using this item not only gives you that HP and mana, but also a touch of corruption, which just essentially makes your spells do more damage. And the other option seems to be this one right here. Being a slightly cheaper version, it also restores less HP and mana. But this one can hold 5 charges, which is pretty cool. But that is about it for this video, guys. Those are all the new items that I have found and people have found as well on Reddit. Keep in mind that there are some items that I did not talk about, so I do recommend checking out the links down below. And these might not even be every single new item, as Riot will probably release a few more of them as the days and weeks come by. But if you did enjoy this video or found it informative, definitely hit that like button as it helps me quite a lot. Subscribe if you haven't, check out my other videos as well, and hope to see you for the next one. Peace.